Now, remember when I said earlier that this case was going to be thought-provoking? Well, here is a little twist, and this is the part that I really want to know y'all's opinion about. When Gina got settled in Cambridge, she realized that no one there knew her story. So she's like in a new place. Remember, no internet back then. Nobody knows about her past. Nothing. This was actually an opportunity for her to completely start over. So she ended up getting enrolled in a new high school, and she did extremely well. Remember in the beginning of the video, I said that she was even doing really good in school back at her other school as well. So in this new school, she was an honor roll student with an IQ of 150. She ended up becoming the co-captain of the tennis team. She ended up becoming a member of the academic team, and she was a volunteer tutor for underprivileged students. So she was doing a lot and a lot of good stuff. Because she did so well, Gina felt like she had every opportunity to go to an Ivy League school. So she ended up setting her sights on Harvard. In 1994, Gina applied to Harvard, and in her application essay, she described herself as a troubled orphan who had endured impossible hardship and still somehow came out of it. During an interview with Harvard, she actually mentioned that her mother had tragically passed in an accident, but she didn't tell the people at Harvard how her mother passed or really like who was responsible for this like accident. Well, Gina ended up being accepted into Harvard, and she was even granted early admission. However, in the spring of 1995, the school received several anonymous mailed news article clippings about what Gina had done. It is rumored that her aunt and her uncle may have been the ones that sent these news clippings into the school. And I just have to think, if they did, I think there are some people out there that know what it's like for your own people to try to pull you down. Right? Like crazy. She did all this work, put all this work in at this point. She got accepted into Harvard, and somebody who it is rumored to be her own aunt and uncle, the ones that she was going to live with, but they ended up having issues. So she moves out on her own. She's still doing well, starts mailing in newspaper clippings to Harvard. Well, Harvard ended up holding a public debate about whether or not to allow Gina to stay admitted there.
Whether Harvard should admit Gina Grant. Although that's the formal topic title, I think the real question is whether Harvard should have rescinded Gina Grant's offer of admission in the first place. This is an event at Harvard that has gathered national attention in the media. The New York Times wrote a lead editorial not in favor of Harvard's decision and stating that Harvard should not have rescinded their offer of admission to Gina Grant. It has received national press attention throughout the country, and in my mind, the reason for that is partially because of sympathies for and against Gina, but also because this debate raises many interesting questions about the way that we treat juvenile criminals or people who have pled guilty to juvenile crimes in America after they've served their official times. And it raises more questions about social responsibility and child criminals in general. And that is the reason for tonight's debate. This is something about which the Harvard campus is surprisingly split. Usually Harvard is thought of and tends to be a pretty liberal university, but in a poll conducted by the Harvard Independent last week of about 1,500 Harvard students, 54% of the students here responded yes to the question, do you think that Harvard should have rescinded Gina Grant's admission, whereas 46% responded no.
And ultimately, officials decided to rescind her admission on the grounds that she made material misrepresentations of herself. So all of that, and they ended up basically kicking her out.